Hello, everybody. Welcome to Having Your Say. We hope you are doing well and continuing to follow the COVID rules to keep all of us safe and healthy. Coming up on today's show is part 2 of our 2012 interview with former Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr. The issues I discussed with him on part 1 and today on part 2 are concerns we are still faced with today. I'm sure you will agree in listening to the conversation. And now, today's show. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Having Your Say. I'm Robbie Smith, your host. As always, this program brings you mostly good news stories to inspire, inform, and to educate. On this show, we're going to continue with part 2 with my special guest, my Congressman, the Honorable Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome back.
I'm happy to have my say.
Okay, very good, very good. And you know we have a lot to say during this political campaign. There is so much going on. So I want to just continue on. We didn't talk about your platform last time, so I want to give you the opportunity to just talk a little bit about the issues that are most important to you.
Robbie, it's not complicated. Jobs is my first issue. Jobs is my second issue. And jobs is my third issue.
Okay.
When I ran for Congress in 1995, I said I wanted to build a south side of Chicago and south suburbs that begins to look like and that begins to grow like the north side of Chicago and northwest suburbs. On the north side of Chicago, there are 3 jobs for every 1 person. In Elk Grove Village, 35,000 people live there, but 100,000 people go to work there every day. It's a very different economic environment. It's why they boast some of the best schools, because a lot of people pay taxes for the number of people who actually live in the village. I compare that to the south side of Chicago and south suburbs, where there are nearly 3 people for every 1 job. That's why standing at 95th and Dan Ryan to catch an L is a traffic jam every morning going north. That's why I-57, the Dan Ryan going north every day at 8 o'clock in the morning, there's a traffic jam. It's why coming across the Steel Bridge going north is a traffic jam. Why Stony Island Avenue going north at 8 o'clock in the morning is a traffic jam. And you can stand in the middle of I-57, the Bishop Ford Freeway, Stony Island Avenue, State Street going south, or Michigan Avenue going south at 8 o'clock in the morning, and you won't get hit by nothing, because nothing is fighting to get to the south side of Chicago until we turn the economy around by building an airport in the Southland that will put a Hyatt and a Hilton and a Fairmont and a UPS and a Federal Express and an Avis and a Hertz and a Dollar rental car companies on the south side of Chicago, because of the service-based economy. And for 17 years, I've been working on that. I've convinced Governor George Ryan to begin buying land. I convinced the last governor, Blagojevich, to keep buying land. I convinced Governor Pat Quinn to keep buying land.
I want to stop right there. Okay, you convinced Quinn to buy the land, but I understand he's kind of stuck on signing some documents that he could have signed before now. Can you explain that to me?
No, I don't know why he's stuck, but we got to get him unstuck, because people can't wait,
What is
Robbie.
it that he needs to sign?
A lease. You see, when the city of Chicago offers land to Walmart or to Target, they lease the land to them, then Walmart and Target come in and they build their stores. The city of Chicago does not tell Walmart what's in aisle 1, aisle 2, aisle 3, aisle 4. You let the business run their store. 21 governments in the Southland have a contract with private developers to build an airport on state land. The developers are going to run the airport. We don't need the state of Illinois telling us what happens in this terminal here, what happens over here. The state of Illinois doesn't have to do that. So we need the governor to sign a clean lease to those 21 governments so that they can begin construction and put people to work.
So I assume, though, that is an issue that the governor really, he knows the economic benefit.
The way airports normally run in Illinois, politicians run them, and that's why they don't work. That's why Mayor Daley used to control everything that goes in O'Hare, who gets the contract and who gets business. This is a public-private partnership. It is a public entity, 21 governments, who've entered into a relationship with a private developer. The private developer is going to determine who's inside the airport, how it's run, how business is transacted, not the politicians. And that is a big stickling point, because usually when the politicians are involved, there's corruption.
Okay, what issues would prevent the governor from signing these documents, the lease?
Well, I can't imagine what issues are. The state is broke. The state has no money. We've invested $35 million in 4,000 acres of land where there's nothing on it but tumbleweed. We got a bunch of unemployed people who, if they are put to work, they can pay taxes to the state. They can begin to turn the economy around by showing some sense of economic benefit as Hyatt, Hilton, Fairmont, and hotels begin to locate to the south side of Chicago. I don't know about you, but I don't consider the Stony Island Hotel, the Ranch Motel, the Zanzibar Motel to be the same caliber of motels and hotels that we see in downtown Chicago. I want a south side that looks like the north side of Chicago. I want to be able to go out in front of my house on East 72nd Street, and I want to hail a cab. Now, I'm 46 years old, but it's hard to hail a cab on the south side of Chicago. It's really hard to hail a cab on the south side of Chicago. Well, most folk who live downtown have no idea what I'm talking about when I say we can't hail a cab. Well, where are all the cabs? The cabs are downtown and they're going to the airport. So if we build an airport on the south side, guess what? We're going to have cabs.
Exactly.
And just like that movie Harlem Nights with the boxer who had a lisp, taxi. I want to be able to stand out in front of my house, and even if a taxi drives by me, I want to at least know, I could have caught one.
Exactly. Now let's talk about, I want to just end this about the Peatone Airport, but tell me, what kinds of jobs in the early stages could we expect?
Well, the first phase will be 1,000 construction jobs. It will take 1,000 people 2 years to build one 12,000-foot runway and 5 gates. Those 5 gates will be owned by the 21 governments in the south suburbs, and they will also own the 12,000-foot runway that will be leased on state land to the developers so that they can run and operate it. But a 12,000-foot runway, Robbie, means nonstop to Beijing. Right now, there are airlines in Beijing that want access to the central part of the United States, but Midway's runway is 6,400 feet, so that airplane can't land there. Yes. And O'Hare Airport already has too many planes landing at it during peak operation hours. And so there's an opportunity for us to attract the global economy through a gateway to the south suburbs. Now, what that means is, it means that students at Kankakee High School are going to have to start learning Chinese. We got to get them a Chinese teacher. And that's true of Thornton, Thornridge, Homewood, Flossmoor, Bowen High School, and most high schools on the south side of Chicago, because the south side of Chicago needs to be part of the global economy. McCormick Place is part of the global economy.
Yes.
O'Hare is part of the global economy.
Exactly.
The Ritz-Carlton Hotel, the Chicago Waldorf Astoria Hotel is part of the global economy. The Ranch Motel and the Stony Island Motel ain't part of no global economy. They're part of the Stony Island economy, and I'm going to change that if it's the last thing I do.
Okay, let's talk about another project that I think is in your district, the one that Alderman Jackson brought up on the east side of Chicago.
Yes.
I've seen renderings of what could happen on the lakefront. So kind of talk about that briefly.
Well, Alderman Jackson has a big vision. She has more than 500 acres on the southeast side of the city, large enough to build another downtown Chicago, and most Chicagoans don't even know that it even exists. And in fact, I wish there were a way that we could personally take people on a tour of the land on 79th and Escanaba all the way to 92nd and Exchange, all the way east to the lake. It's where they did the big concert with the Dave Matthews Band. Some of you got an opportunity to see this past summer the overhead view of just how large the land is. 22,000 people used to go to work there, but now it can become new neighborhoods, and it can become retail and real opportunities for Southsiders and Southeastern Chicagoans. But let me throw one more thing out at you. We might as well start thinking about it. I pray and hope that the president is reelected in 2012. He deserves a second term. But whether he gets a second term or not, there is going to be an Obama presidential library. And we need to be discussing in our community where we want it built. Should it be built at the University of Chicago, where they got everything?
Yes.
Should it be built at Chicago State University, where we need some things? Should it be built at Governor State University in the far south suburbs? Should it be built right there on Alderman Jackson's 500 acres so we can have a decommissioned Air Force One, have our high school and elementary school students come to the Obama Presidential Library and learn about the first African American president of the United States? More than 500,000 people to 1 million people every year visit presidential libraries. And I can only imagine that President Barack Obama's presidential library will be breaking record numbers for people who will visit it.
An economic engine.
An economic engine. So if it is built somewhere south of where we are, where our communities are, what ends up happening is taxis have to come to the Obama Presidential Library, which means when we're standing on Stony Island Avenue, we'll be able to say, taxi, stop.
Okay, let's get into another issue now. There are all kinds of things that affects the opportunity to move forward. Now, let's talk a little bit about Illinois. And I'm thinking of all of these jobs. You said jobs, but I'm thinking of when President Obama went into office, and a little bit later he talked about shovel-ready opportunities, okay, here in Illinois. It is my understanding from black chambers and so forth that blacks did not benefit from those shovel-ready dollars. So when the money, you're on the Appropriations Committee, what that kind of money goes where, and who decides on how it's distributed?
Well, it goes to shovel-ready projects presently decided by the states for which the funds are appropriated, and presently decided by the administration to the extent that there are no longer earmarks for which members of Congress can direct the projects. I believe in the earmarking process. For example, I appropriated $40 million to extend from South Holland, the metro station, all the way to Crete, $40 million. It was to be matched under a federal-state agreement by $40 million from the state of Illinois. The state of Illinois is fiscally insolvent, so the state of Illinois could not put up its $40 million, which would have brought it to $80 million, and it could have been leveraged even further for the purposes of completing that line. So the $40 million that I appropriated then went back to the general fund because the state of Illinois could not honor its obligation. And believe me when I tell you, there would have been minority contractors, construction firms, and others working on the project, but the state of Illinois' fiscal house isn't in order, and it's jeopardizing a lot of federal projects. It's one of the reasons why I want to change the state funding formula, the federal-state agreement, because increasingly the federal government is going to have to pay more than its lion's share, or more than a 50% share, or for these projects, or I'll keep appropriating projects, we'll keep giving the money back because the state of Illinois cannot match the projects that we appropriate at the federal level for construction projects. But I think you're raising another point, which is something I think we're going to have to watch very, very closely. In October, the federal Supreme Court is looking at a very serious case in Texas that could fundamentally, based on a history of votes from certain jurists on the court, change affirmative action as we know it. Maybe even end affirmative action as we know it. And that could end the 8A program. It could profoundly alter the WBE program and the MBE program. So we need to watch what's happening at the court because of ideologues on the court who think African Americans and women and others have arrived, and therefore they no longer need these special programs, and that decision could come down as early as October, which brings me to my point about this airport one more time. Right now, South suburban African American governments control this airport. The argument has been...
What percent?
100%.
100% African American for this Peatone Airport?
Right, they have a contract for $700 million.
So that's why Governor Quinn has not signed the papers.
Well, that's got to be part of it. He's trying to find a way to put people in the commission who've been on the outside to get them in. And so what I want to be clear on...
Is this partly why we have this opponent against you also?
Well, she proposes that an airport that she's running for Congress in the 2nd Congressional District. The contract is in the 2nd Congressional District. 21 governments in the 2nd Congressional District control the contract. Her proposal is to take the contract out of the 2nd Congressional District and move it to Joliet, Illinois, where she used to be the congresswoman, where her political allies are, and they should control it. Which means my constituents, even though the airport is in our congressional district, are supposed to leave the south suburbs, go to Joliet, get permission to come back and work at an airport near their home.
See, this brings me to my thinking about the black ministers who endorsed Ms. Halverson.
And have now endorsed me.
They took it back?
They took their endorsement back yesterday. It was lost in the press from the Nancy Pelosi endorsement of me. But I'm so honored that more than 50 clergymen, who many of whom, about a dozen of whom, had previously endorsed Ms. Halverson, reconsidered the candidacy of Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr. and have now endorsed me and are working really hard towards our reelection. Not many people in the press, Robbie, have reported that, but I welcome those ministers to the Jackson campaign.
This gets to the other point of us meaning blacks and other minorities, not having control over enough media sources. You know, having CAN TV is a wonderful opportunity here in Chicago, because when you think about it, you know, CAN TV produces more original programming than all of the other networks combined. But my point is, we're able to interview you on a more regular basis to get down to the nitty-gritty of issues like we're discussing tonight.
And you're fair.
Exactly, but the point is, you can get on air when this media thing bothers me, because just like the hidden story that you're talking about, now that you've told me this, maybe I could go find some information, I can put it in an e-blast, I can send it out, but if we don't have access to this information, if we don't have resources where we can distribute it,
that's right,
then we are limited. And I want to encourage more of our media people to be kind of organized to do some central things around the 2012 election. But okay, let's get back to something else. In talking about the Supreme Court, you mentioned the case that they were here in October, and I understand that race, they're going to reconsider whether race should be a factor in considering people for college or whatever. But what about all of those other categories? Legacy, if you live in a rural community, there are all kinds of things are listed. Why should race be the key thing that they will be reviewing at this hearing?
Well, there's no such thing as a narrow Supreme Court decision. Every time the Supreme Court of the United States issues an opinion, it is a broad decision. Brown versus the Board of Education was a decision in 1954 about education, but the ramifications desegregated housing, it desegregated the workforce, it desegregated the workplace, it desegregated airlines. Brown versus the Board of Education, as a monumental desegregation decision, changed water fountains, it changed everything all over the United States of America. So there's no such thing as a narrow Supreme Court decision. The Texas case in October is about education, but it will not be narrow. It will affect 8A programs, WBE, MBE. It will affect every facet.
Why does it have to refer to other areas of affirmative action? Now, I remember when the Michigan case was considered, that's when Sandra Day O'Connor was still a justice.
But Robbie, it's because it's a constitutional principle.
Okay.
It's not just about the facts of the underlying facts of the case, as much as it is interpreting whether the Constitution is silent or whether the Constitution speaks specifically to the issues for which the underlying facts are addressed in a Supreme Court case. So remove education for a moment. The question before us is whether or not a state can set aside a quota system that provides a historically discriminated group of people a unique opportunity if others in the broad stream have the opportunity.
But they took quotas out. They now say goals and not quotas.
Here are the facts of the Texas case, and these do matter. The University of Texas had